Okay, so we're going to start today's lesson by building our fish body. So the fish body is going to be about this shape, obviously 3D, drawn like this, and it's going to be made up of two slip pots. So it's sort of, we're going to take it apart and how it's going to be formed. So we need to make then two of these sort of shapes that can be put together to make your fish's body. So how do we make one of these slip pots? It's going to form the fish's body, which we will then start to build our own design around. Fins, perhaps. Let's see if we can get closer so you can see that a bit better. A tail coming out as well, maybe some eyes, etc. So how do we make some slip pots really accurately? I'm going to show you now. Now, there is a wrong way to do this. I'll show you how to do the right way and how to add them together, but I'll also show you after that how to do it the wrong way, just to make sure that you know what you're doing. Now, you will need some clay, and you will have this already pre-cut for you. So you'll have some clay on your table, probably an amount about like this, all right? Maybe in a bit more of a square shape. And we're going to put it into thirds. So I'm going to try and cut this into thirds. Yours will be slightly easier to do because you'll have a more obvious shape. So if I put it into some thirds with my knife, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So let's pop that sheet up there. We're making 2 slip pots, and let's get the clay in the middle. So these 2 pieces of clay are, for me, the most equal. So we can use these 2 to make the 2 sides of our body, because the more equal the better, because it needs to be even on both sides, okay? So you will need to do this then, obviously a knife to cut the clay, but you will also need a pot of water, a brush, and a little slip pot. Now, I've already said we're going to make some slip pots, but we can make this mini slip pot, sometimes called a pinch pot, because we will need that to join clay together. We can make this by rolling our clay into a sphere and pinching it like this to make a little pot. So we can use that if we need to. Now, we're going to do the more advanced version of that now as well. You might find you already had one of these ready to go on your table. If not, you can make one now. So you're going to grab one piece of your third of clay, because we need 2 of these, and you are going to be just tapping it. If it's not already in a quite nice spherical shape, you're going to be tapping it into the centre. Keep rotating, keep tapping. Now, the reason we tap it, not banging it, I'm not banging it on the table, I'm not doing anything silly like that, I am just tapping it simply, okay? The reason we do that is because we want to try and tap out some of the air as we go. Especially if you manage to squash your clay from all different angles together, you might find that you've got air trapped in, so we just got to tap that out. Don't worry about that too much, there won't be too much air, but it's a good thing to do just to keep as a good practice. Once you've tapped it enough into that sort of spherical shape, you're going to start to roll with your hands, palm of your hands, just adjusting your angle to make sure that you're getting your sphere nicely. If I go too much on one angle, I'll find that it goes too flat that way, and I want it to stay sort of circular, spherical. So let's just make sure we're keeping the angle going. So I've got one of those, that's great. I'm going to just do the other one just to make sure the sizes match, because that's important. So tap in, do that process again, just tapping it into its spherical shape. My arms are aching a little bit, so that's a good sign. Start to roll into that spherical shape again, tapping it a bit more if you need to, until you have 2 quite even spheres. Now these are going to become these 2 slip pots. So how are we going to do that? We're going to have it in our hand, palm of our hand, so we've got that nice support underneath, like cradling it. We're going to get our thumb and our finger, and we're going to just push our thumb down, not too far, we're not going through. We want to get it to about here in the middle. So we're going to push our thumb to about there, and we're just going to start to squeeze at the side. Now I'm squeezing quite upright, and what the squeezing is doing is it's making the hole bigger towards the edge. So let's try and make sure you can see that on the camera. So I'm just making sure that I'm getting bigger towards the edge like this, and you should be ending up with a slip pot from the side that looks a bit like this, a bit bigger, okay, and looks a little bit like these sort of bowl shapes that I was speaking about. So I'll just do the other one quickly, again pushing into the middle, not too far, not too much through, and just pressing towards the edge. You might find that you have got some grooves in your clay, just try and avoid them, it should be fine. making sure it's nice and upright, because we want to end up putting these two together, so they need to be even. Alright, don't worry too much about the edges, you can sort of squash them together a bit more like that, but they need to be quite even, because this is what can go wrong. So pop those to the side, pop those on there because that's where they need to go. So we'll get this into a spherical shape, tapping. This is the last time I'm going to show you this bit, and then the next thing I'm going to show you is how to do the process I just showed you to build these two wrong, okay? Just tapping this together like this into a sphere, rolling into a sphere. Try to do it quickly, I'll do it just off camera quickly so it's not winding up with my hands. So we've got our sphere, we put our thumb in, we have our finger, but just watch my angle and try and figure out what's going wrong here. So what you might find is you end up with a bit more of a bowl. It's too wide compared, because what we can't do is put these two together now, so that's why they need to, you have more of a process to make them even. And also, if you had two of these together, you're not going to get that nice long fish shape that you want, that you'll get from these two, because that will obviously create a longer fish shape. Okay, so leave that to one side, that's fine. And let's think about how we join these together. You will need a knife, you'll need a brush, you'll need your slip pot, and you'll need your water to make some paste. Whenever we join things together, we must score them and slip them. That's the process that's called scoring and slipping. Scoring is basically roughing up the area with your knife to make sure there's a good texture, because we want this piece and this piece to knit together, so intertwine, to weave together with the paste in between so that it glues. Okay, so we're going to do that on both. I'm sort of cross-hatching, I'm just going backwards and forwards, cross-hatching to sort of build up the texture so that we've got a good surface to stick to the other surface. The more you've roughed up, the more that you've added slip, the better it's going to be. So I'm just going to get a little bit of water, not loads, and I'm going to start to create a paste in this slip pot. Now I'll show you with this one, we add that paste on. If you're just using the fresh slip pot, like I've got another little one here, you might need to just work the water a little bit before you can get your paste. Okay, so try, it's a bit like, it'll be a bit like glue. Not too thin, it's got to be a bit thicker, but it's certainly not pure clay. It's got lots of water in. Okay, so once you've got those two pasted together, we start to stick them together like this. Okay, just make sure it's nice and even all around. You might want to adjust it just so it's nice and even. Okay, and then you're going to have it in your hand like this again, so we've got a lot of support, so we can't squash it. So you're going to have your fingers curled around it like this to support it. And we're going to do some more knitting together, more interweaving, more interlocking, to make sure that it's really knitted together. So you might want to turn it round so you can weave it both ways if you want to, or you can just use two fingers to be knitting it together. And don't worry too much about it squashing a little bit. It's alright at this stage as long as you obviously don't squash it too much, and that's why we've got the support on the other side to make sure the pressure is both ways. Okay, so just making sure this is all knitted together nicely like this. Okay, now the next thing to do is just to make sure that it's all nice and even. Okay, and finally we must make sure, go back to my drawing, that we have a hole at the bottom of our fish. Okay, so we must make sure that we make one of those. I'm going to show you how to do this, and I'm going to pause, if your teacher wants to pause the video to talk about why you might need a hole at the bottom of your fish. So with your finger or thumb, you're just going to push a hole in so it's got a nice area there, and then that's going to be the bottom of your fish like that. And once you're done, your fish will end up like this, and that's going to be the bottom area there. Okay, so that is the start of adding slip pots together, and the next video will show you how to add your different features to create your fish design. Okay, thank you, Year 7.